Hello everyone, welcome to Forkin Delicious. In today's episode, we're going to make a cottage pie. And cottage pie because we're using beef, all right? So my name is JJ Healy and...
I'm Shauna.
And we're going to head straight into, we're going to show you first of all the ingredients we're using. So I have some potatoes on over here just steaming in a steamer. You can steam them or boil them, it's up to you. So they're going to be for the topping on top of the meat sauce that's underneath. And these are my ingredients down here that I'm going to use. So we have some lovely lean minced beef. We have some tinned tomatoes. These are frozen peas, but they're better than tin peas and that. We've some chopped scallions, some cheese, grated cheese, a little bit of milk and butter for the mashed potato. This is just a little bit of gravy granules that I use. It helps thicken up the juices and stops the sauce from being a little bit kind of watery and gives it a little bit more body. So, and then we have some onions here that we're going to fry and some carrots. I'm going to chop some of these here now just to show you. And all I did really was take these from being in the length and cut them in half. So you can see that. And then I cut them in half again on the length. And now I'm just going to put them together and I'm going to slice them as thin as I can. Just so that they'll cook at the same time as the onions and that we won't end up with little hard bits inside it. Try and do this as slow as you can when you're starting off. It's always the best way, just till you get used to it. And you can pick up the bit of speed later, all right? So... And again, for anyone that's watching and say this is not cottage pie, because sometimes people use cooked beef and all that, I would just say to you is that this is my version of cottage pie. Everything that's on this channel is the Forkin Delicious version. Everything that we make will be Forkin good, will be full of Forkin flavour and will taste Forkin delicious, all right? So that will save any, chef people getting in touch with me to say, oh, this is not that, okay? So this is our version of it, right? And I think everyone's entitled to do that and make something your own, all right? So you can see the lid here lifting. These I'm steaming. I prefer to steam potatoes for mash because they don't tend to be as, the water content is not as high then. So, so these I think are just nearly done. Yep, they're just nearly done. So I'm actually going to turn them off for a second. That way I can concentrate and start getting the sauce going here. So I'm going to turn up my heat here. In here, I just have a little bit of vegetable oil, not too much. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to cook the onions and carrots first, just as in to get them going. So you can hear the sizzle there. Altogether, this dish doesn't really take a long time for it to do. So we're just going to give them a minute or two just to get the heat and to get going. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in the mince next. All right. Most of this other stuff here is for later on. So you'll see as we go along, the next most important part is the mince. And what people forget about mince is that mince is from a cheap cut, right? So it's tough. So you need to cook it. You actually need to cook it nearly like low and slow, So actually the longer you can give it cooking and letting it cook slowly, right? I have it on high here starting off with these onions. I'll leave it on high because the mince will actually cool this down now when I throw it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it down then and then I'm going to slowly cook it as I go along, all right? And that's the point people, I think, forget, is that sometimes with mince, you need to actually cook it a small bit. Now, so you can hear the sound, you can see the steam. Now we're going to take our mince. So this is 400 grams of lean minced beef. And usually there's a little piece of paper on the back. So remember that. And then what you're going to look to do is just to brown this meat. So I find best thing to do is to break it up with the wooden spoon. Spread it out in your pan. Try not to move it around too much, otherwise it won't cook. All you're doing is moving it before it gets any heat. So we're just going to leave that for a minute. Also, I think in my own head, I don't know if this is real or not, but I often find when I'm using the onions and carrots, or you know, if I'm doing anything, bolognese sauce or anything, I always find if the veg is in there, it kind of goes in and helps the meat to separate. So, well, at least that's in my head, I think that anyway. So, now this is just starting to brown a little bit on the bottom, so that's lovely. And it's starting to separate, so you don't want any big clumps of meat in this. You want it all to be nicely kind of separated and cooking nicely. And we're getting there with that now. So for these, while that's just cooking another bit there, I'm actually going to turn it down now because I think it's actually been on high heat enough and it's starting to really sizzle there a bit. And I'm just going to let it simmer away there for another while. Alright, so I'm just going to turn this down. So the great thing about induction cookers is you have instant heat, you know, or instant reduction of heat. So I'm just going to turn up till I just hear a little sizzle. So it's actually just sizzling there, but we'll turn up one more. There you go, you can just hear it starting to sizzle. So that'll be enough. And what I'm going to do now is get these potatoes. So save the washing up, and also because this is nice and hot, I just tend to take the water out of the bottom of the pot and then put my mashed potato in, or my potatoes in that I'm going to mash. So, yep, I can nearly mash these with the spoon. So they're ready. So what I'm going to do here now is I'll get my potato masher. I have a fancy electric one, but you don't need it, you know. You can just use, you know, an ordinary hand masher. All right. So you see there, in a few minutes, I'll show you on the camera. These are mashing lovely. We'll start it. So we want some salt. So just going to put in a nice, good pinch of salt. Some people prefer white pepper when they're mashing potatoes. I don't mind. I like black pepper. I especially like it when it's freshly ground. So now, the other thing I'm going to do here is put the butter in. So that's my butter. And I'm just going to mash that in now another bit till the butter melts before. And if I want to, I could heat this in the microwave. But I'm not going to, if I was doing it for mashed potato, I would. But I'm actually using this as a topping and it's going to go into the oven. So anything that this cools down by, it's going to heat back up again. And actually it might make it a little bit easier for me to work with when it's cold into the mash. So now I have my salt and pepper in here. So we can take this out. And I'm going to go back to using a wooden spoon. These are just some herbs I picked up, some Italian herbs. I was looking for some oregano. You could use mixed herbs as well. You don't have to follow these Italian ones. I think in the recipe that you'll see underneath, it says a little bit of mixed herbs, and that's optional if you want it or not. But it does give this a nice flavour. The other thing I'm going to add here now is some Worcestershire sauce. Or as one of our fellas commented on the last one, wash your sister sauce. So that's actually even closer than what I say. But I prefer the word Liam Parings. You know, this is not Liam Parings. So now, nice little splash of Worcester in there. And then give that a little mix. We have our tin tomatoes going in next. Everything in here now is going to simmer, cook for a little while. And I'm going to leave the peas till the very last to go in. All right? Because I don't want them to lose their colour that much. And if I start cooking them for too long, they'll go that sickly kind of pale green that nobody likes. So now back to our mashed potato. Just this is cooking here nicely now, so I'm just going to spread it out and going to turn up just a shade. The temperature dropped a bit because I added a tin of tomatoes there, cold tomatoes into it. So it's dropped a small bit, so I'm just picking it back up again so it picks up the pace on it again a small bit. And you can keep an eye on this anyway. It's going to be perfect because it's kind of it's cooking in its own juices now. But still, the minute you turn around, that's when it gets burnt. All right. So now I have my potatoes here. I'm going to add the milk. Not all of it. I'm going to add it. It's kind of like when you say how much milk to add to this, it's kind of like asking somebody, you know, how big is half a hole? All right. You know what I mean? It's just by eye. So what you need to do is you need to add enough milk till you make the mash creamy. You can use cream as well, but like I'm doing these recipes this in this session, kind of like a budget recipe, just to see what we can make this for and what it will cost. So now it's getting nice, and see the way the potatoes get nice and fluffy, kind of. Can you see that? So if I hold it like that, okay. So I'm just going to put in a tiny drop more, because you always need a small bit more than you think. And also, as we're getting ready to put this together, it will cool a little bit. So that's lovely. So now I'll take my scallions and I'm going to drop these in here. So what we're making here is kind of like a champ. Mix that in. These will give it a lovely flavour as well. And they'll also give it a nice little bit of colour. And the other thing I do is I take some of this cheese and I put that in there. I'm going to keep a small bit for the top. So about half in there and maybe half for the top. All right. And that cheese will melt in here. I'm going to give that top and a lovely kind of creamy, cheesy texture. You'll see what it's like at the end here when we serve it up. So now look, our mix here is cooking lovely. All right, the flavour is getting really good. I haven't seasoned it yet, so I'm nearly there now. So I'm ready to put this into the tray and into the oven. So I'm just going to turn the oven on and going to turn the oven to 200 just to get it warm and to warm it up. And then I might turn it down to around 170 or 180 for it to actually cook the shepherd's pie. Everything in here is kind of cooked. This meat will cook another bit, which will be good for it. And what you call it, but it's kind of nearly cooked, so about 40 minutes in the oven at 170, 180. All right. Now, peas in next. So these are just frozen peas. So we put them in. You don't have to, if you don't like them, don't put them in. But they are lovely for that little bit of colour. So now, so the peas give it a lovely little colour. And they're nice too for a little bit of variety inside in it. All right. So we've onions, carrots and peas now. So we're going to take those little bit of gravy granules that was sent you. There's kind of a little bit of the juice from the tomatoes, maybe a little bit of fat from the beef. Right. So what we're going to do with the Worcester sauce, a bit of juice from that. So we're just going to add a small little bit of these granules. And that's just going to set those juices for us. That's all we really want to do. We're not going to make this these granules, let them overtake it or anything. You're still going to taste only the beef and stuff. So I'll just put another little bit in there. And I think that's nearly enough. Yep, that's a bit. So now that's kind of set those juices for us. So we're going to give it another little few seconds there just to, and I'll just clean down the sides of this. The carrots are trying to get out. So now, and the last thing we're going to do is we're going to season it. So I'm just going to taste what it's like now. It's mostly the juice I'm looking for. I don't need to eat the meat. okay. It's quite nice, but I just need some salt. And I need some pepper. Now, this is ready now to put together into the dish and into the oven. So now, we're just going to finish this off, place it in the oven dish. Now, if you have a little bit too much, I don't know if I will or not with this at the moment, because I'm making it in a smaller dish than I usually use. But it's more than enough to show here for this demonstration to show how to do it. But what I want to do is to show you, if you have some left over, you don't have to worry. So we have that there now. So now we have, what do the young people say, Shauna? We have meal prep, is it?
Meal prep.
Yeah, meal prep here for another day. This would work lovely as a topping on mashed potato or on baked potatoes. It would work with pasta. You could just put it with some pasta. I'll just put one more in there just to level that off. And then the rest is going into this here little freezer. So handy to keep these little containers from the takeaways. And you can add them in yourself then, sort of. So you can put that in a fridge. Once it's cool, you can hold it for about 3 days in the fridge once it's cool. Or you can freeze it and take it out. But I wouldn't recommend to leave it in the freezer for anything more than 3 months, because you're just running the chance of it getting freezer burned, and all you're doing then is throwing it out, okay? So now, I could pipe this on, but I wanted to show people you don't need anything fancy. You don't need a fancy, electric blender to do your mash. While that's cooling as well, just leave the lid off it like that a little bit to let some of the steam off. And once that's cold enough, we'll put it in the fridge or the freezer, whichever we decide. So this mashed potato here, just on top. Now if I had a bigger tray, this would do 4 people comfortably. And I wouldn't be short. This will nearly do 3, maybe 2 people comfortably, we'll say. Maybe 3, all right? And again here, I'm going to probably use most of the mash here because I like that there's a nice proportion of mash, nearly half and half to the meat underneath. Just use your fork. You see how nice and creamy the spuds are there? That it's allowing us to move this around fairly easy. So, like, you don't need a piping bag and a nozzle and all that. I'm actually going to put all the potato on this, but I'm going to spread it out in a second. Now, that's all the mash. So we can play around with this for a minute. So I don't know if you remember, this is the way we were taught in home economics when we were doing home economics in the 80s. So they're probably still teaching that. That's our mashed potato on top. So now we just have to finish it. You don't have to do this either, but I'm just going to take a little bit of beaten egg, and I'm going to brush that on top of this, and then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of cheese on it, and then we'll put that in the oven. And in 45 minutes, we will have a look at this. Just tap it on like that. You don't have to brush it on. You can if you want, and the brush will actually leave some nice little brush marks, the same as what your fork was doing. So we could do it like that. This will create a nice crust too on the top, give it a nice golden brown colour. The butter we have in it will do that as well. And then what you need to do just before you put it in the oven is you just need to clean around the edges for any egg wash you might have put there. This is just for yourself, you don't have to do this either, but this just stops it looking messy. Alright, so Small sprinkling of this cheese again. Now putting it on this early and putting it in, this is nearly going to gratinate, or kind of gratinate, but I think these crusty bits of cheese on the top are the pieces that people fight for. All right, so now into the oven. And that oven was preheating, so now we can turn it down to 180. And all we left to do now is that we just have to wait for this to cook. So we'll give it 40 minutes and that will be ready. And we'll take that out and we'll show you. Here's our cottage pie coming out of the oven. And there it is. So this is lovely, this little crust on top, like that. All right, really delicious, really good. Forkin delicious, I would say. Right, would you agree?
Definitely.
So let it cool for a little while before you go to serve it. So we're going to let this cool for a few minutes, and then we're going to serve that, and we'll show you that on the plate in a couple of minutes. All right. Just going to take out a portion here and present it. So nice scoop in here. Try and get right to the bottom, and then try and take it in one go, so that you're getting it up. And you're getting all that nice meat underneath. There really should be smells on video, so that you can smell something as well. All right. So I'm just going to say this is our cottage pie, and it's our budget-friendly gold star recipe, and it's absolutely forkin delicious. So we'd like you to like, subscribe. If you want to make any comments, if you want to ask us to make anything, you know, put it into the comments. We read all the comments, and they're easy to read at the moment. But and we'll try, if you have a dish to recommend, we'll try and do it. Okay? All right, thanks a million.